Hello, and welcome to another report card. Planning to get these completed before the national draft. It's not going to be completed before the end of the trade period. Um, yeah, it's a bit of a project, to be perfectly honest. But anyway, I've enjoyed doing it. It's been a really productive exercise just to really delve deep into our players from an individual point of view, and also looking at them and how they fitted into the team, etc., and what happens moving forward. So we're up to Jacob Weitering, vice captain of our football club, and arguably one of our most important players. In fact, he could be our most important player when you think about it. You could mount a case. Yeah, I don't know. I looked at when I was doing this, I was thinking about Weitering before his injury, um, and then his output on his return later on in the year. And there's no doubt there was a difference. He was a lot better before the injury, um, but I just don't think he was anywhere near his best for the whole year. Even at the start of the year, I don't know. There was just something about him that I just didn't think he quite hit his straps. There were some games where he was exceptional early in the year. Um, I just think he dropped somewhat. Um, and I know he made the All Australian squad of 44, but I thought that was somewhat generous. I really do. And I think most of us, if he didn't make that squad, I think we would have accepted that and never questioned it. Um, it was never really a realistic chance of being All Australian this year. And that's got nothing to do with his injuries either. Just don't think he was anywhere near his best. And I think he'll hit that next year. There's no doubt about that. He's a lot better than what he showed this year. 24 years of age, he'll be 25 shortly. Career games now 133. He played the 18 this year. 7 seasons now. This group from 2015, that first draft in the rebuild, they're not kids anymore. They're not kids. They're men. They're fully developed, physically fully developed, and they're mature men now. Like they should be coming into their prime and hitting their straps. And that's why it was a little bit of a disappointing year from Weitering. Um, 20, 22, 14, 20, 17, 22, and 20. Pretty durable. Has had some niggles. He copped that shoulder injury this year, but he's a durable footballer. Um, Contract 225, 3 more years, unrestricted free agent at the end of that tenure. Signed a 4-year deal back in 2020, and at the time it felt like a 5-year deal because he still had a year left running on a 4-year contract that he signed, I think, back in maybe 2017. Pick number one in the 2015 draft. And I think it's justified, that pick. We went key position, Sauce went key position, and you know, you think about Weitering, Charlie, and Harry. Uh, Picks. He nailed that. He nailed that. It's the sort of cornerstone of your football team in regards to key position. He's one of our key backs. Key back. He can play deep. He can move up the ground a little bit. Centre half back, but these key backs they roam a fair bit, according to matchups. Season snapshot. Much publicised injury. Played round ones through to round 11, and then copped that AC joint injury against the Pies in round 11. Had surgery and returned in round 17 against the Eagles. We actually did okay and held up pretty well without him for a period of time. Lewis Young was exceptional, and Brody Kemp came in a couple of times, and we held up okay. It wasn't a disaster, but yeah, it was good to see when he came back. Although he wasn't great when he came back. It was great to get him back for those last 7 games, which he played in the seniors. Statistically, not great. He's not elite this year in any key stat. Above average in intercept possessions, spoils, meters gained, and rebound 50s. And just average in disposals. I think his disposal count dropped from previous years. He wasn't winning as much as the ball. He was asked to be more defensive, considering there was no Liam Jones. It was the new coaching regime. With Aaron Hamill, the new defensive coach. Did they come in with a different mindset and different strategies down back? Which changed the way Jacob Weitering played. We're probably just going to have to wait and see how he responds next year. And can he be a little bit more offensive and win a little bit more of the ball? Only averaging 12 disposals, averaging one-on-ones, which is a little bit of a surprise. Intercept marks a little bit down, 1.8, and contested marks, I think that's a little bit down as well. Average. So he can lift, I think, in just about all of those, really. He is our best defender. I think they're not great stats. They're okay. They're okay, but they're not great for him and what he's capable of doing. For his best games, I think he had one that springs to mind was the game against Sydney, where we had that really big lead, and then they came hard and just attacked in that last quarter, and he was just huge. In fact, our whole defence was great that night to hold Sydney out. But I just remember Weitering was just mammoth. And we talk about, I know Charlie kicked 6 that night and was a match winner. I don't think Harry played against Sydney. I think Harry was out with that knee injury, but Charlie kicked 6 and was, I suppose, a match winner in the front half. But, when defenders can save you games, and I think Weitering did it in that game. He saved that for us. When I watched that back, he was the one that held us together down there. Some of his spoils, and he had like 15 1%ers in that game, just throwing himself around and a couple of really big grabs. He was amazing. And I think you're not going to get that output every week, but that's what he can show from a leadership point of view as well. Vice captain of the football club, that I reckon he saved that one for us. He was terrific. And I think the game, he was clearly our best when he returned against Brisbane. He played on Buddy in that Sydney game. I think Buddy only kicked the 1 goal. Sort of freakish Buddy Franklin goal where he was sort of on the run, up the ground and was on the run. But he kept him quiet that game, really blanketed him. And then Joe Danaher in a night where they belted us, Brisbane, that night. Although we hit back late in that last quarter and got within 15 points, they kicked 17 goals, kicked over 100 points, and made a bit of a mess of us. And for Weitering, I thought Weitering took like 4 contested marks, and he was big down back. He was our only bloke that really stood up in that game. Played on Joe Danaher, and for that, not even to hit the scoreboard in that game. They kicked goals. It was a big effort. It was clearly our best player. I just remember, I think it was a solid year by Weitering. But I just remember, from one of his games was the game against Melbourne. That round 22 game, and I sat up behind the goals that game. So I had a really good look at us defensively. And I don't know, he played on Danaher the week before, and then he played on Jake Melksham for the first half, and then they switched and put McGovern on Melksham. But it wasn't a great matchup. it was a terrible matchup, and he just looked all at sea. He's caught between a rock and a hard place. He just didn't know how to play Melksham. He was slow to react. He was reactive rather than being I don't know. He just had a really poor game, and even after half time, after the shift, he had no impact at all. Yeah, yeah, it just sort of summed his year up. I reckon he just didn't quite get going. Yeah, it was a really poor game by Weitering against the D's. Look, his strengths, he's huge, he's a big boy. I mean, he should never or rarely, he should be rarely beaten one on one. That's why the one-on-one disposals, it's sort of that pops out to me. Being average in one-on-one, he should with his frame. And with his experience now, 133 games, I just don't think he should be really beat. He should be really beaten in a contest. So his size is a strength. I think he's a pretty smart player, very intelligent. The way he sets up and marshals behind the ball. I think that sort of sums up why he's vice captain. Steady and reliable. And I think when he's on song, he's a terrific mark. Contested mark, intercept mark. And I'd love for us to use it a little bit more. And I know we need to use him defensively. He's that big gorilla type defender, and no Liam Jones there. But that's one of his real assets is his marking. We didn't quite see it this year. From a weakness point of view, there's no doubt he's a bit lumbering. Agility. He's got the turning circle of the Queen Mary just because of that size. I mean, and this is only an observation. And what I see being at the ground, and I do watch our defenders a lot. So I just think it's a lack of urgency sometimes with him. That's what it looks like. What's going on inside his head. He's thinking about it too much. Just a little bit slow to react, and just a little bit. I don't know. I'd love to see him a little bit more in your face and a little bit more urgency. Like he played against Sydney that night, late in the game when the game was on the line. I'd like to see him play like that all the time. But that's, I suppose, being picky in regards to his weaknesses, because I don't think there is really, other than his speed, I don't think there's any real weaknesses with Jacob Weitering. I think he's going to come right into his prime, at the age of 25 and 7 years of football under his belt. I think he's just about to really hit his straps. One word. In fact, it's two, but I've made it one word. Stop talking. I don't know. I think he's probably earmarking a career in the media or something post football, but he's got a regular gig on SEN, and we always hear him press conferences, which is nothing wrong with that. Someone's got to talk. But I don't know. I just felt this year that whenever he spoke, we never backed it up. And I just think next year, just get the job done, Weeders. Just get the fucking job done, mate. You're vice captain of the football club. I know there was no Liam Jones there this year, and you had some injuries, and your confidence may have been down. But stop talking, mate. Just fucking put your words into actions. Let your actions be the ones which drive us forward rather than the words. Because I think we're all a little bit tired of talking. Rating. I've got so many crossed outs here because I changed my mind so many times. Originally, I had him a 7 out of 10 before his injury and a 6 on his return. And then I thought maybe that's just a fraction harsh. The fact that he made the All-Australian squad of 44, though I thought that was generous. The fact that he's really, down back, we were decimated with injuries, although he was the one who was out. He did put together some really good games in that front half, and then that game against Brisbane. Was I being a little bit tough on him just because it's Jacob Weitering? And I didn't want to be like that. So in the end, I went 7.5 out of 10 for the first half of the season. And then on his return, I've given him a generous 6.5 out of 10, which rounds it out to a 7 out of 10 for Jacob Weitering for 2022. My positives moving forward, as I mentioned before, I think his best football is clearly in front of him. And I think we're set up pretty well down back if, and it is an if we can keep all these guys onto the park. I think we're capable of having a really strong defensive back, sort of 6 to 8 players, really strong, but they've got to remain on the park. Combination of Weitering and Young in particular is potentially probably as good, if not better, than the combination of Weitering and Jones, just because of the steadiness and the reliability, I think, of Lewis Young. I think they're going to be good for each other moving forward. Tell me what you think of the year of Jacob Weitering. Have I been too? Speak soon.